Hello, welcome to the 2023 UAF Arctic Innovation Competition presented by Usabelli Coal Mine. My name is Skylar Smith, and I am a UAF College of Business and Security Management student studying applied management. I am honored to be your MC this evening as we bring AIC straight into your home. We appreciate all of the creative ideas that are submitted to AIC. However, after a round of preliminary screening, only 10 submissions made it to the main division semifinals for ages 18 and over. You will hear 5 of those ideas tonight. They are competing for the cash prize up to $15,000 and 4 kicker prizes. We have an expert panel of judges joining us today. I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming Jack Wilbur, the 2023 Main Division Judges Chair from Design Alaska, John Bittner of Alaska Small Business Development Center, Jim Coley, representing Mount McKinley Bank, Brian Holst, joining us from the Juneau Economic Development Council, Kathleen Hook, representing Doyon Utilities, Justin Seavey, representing our presenting sponsor, Usabelli Coal Mine, and a UAF MBA graduate. New to the panel this year is David Sandberg from Respect Engineering and also a UAF alumni. Last but not least, and also a new judge, is Jessica Taft from GCI. The Arctic Innovation Competition awards over $45,000 in cash prizes and awards. This cannot happen without the generous support of many sponsors. We want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, Usabelli Coal Mine. You are all invited to join us at the Wedgwood Resort at 1 p.m. on Saturday, April 22nd for food, door prizes, and the final round of presentations. Founding sponsors have supported AIC in our mission of innovation and economic development since 2009. That list includes AEDC, Design Alaska, Doyon Limited, FEDC, Kinross Alaska, JEDC, and Northern Bank. Supporting the Cub and Junior divisions is Alaska 529. They provide 7 education-free saving plan scholarships at $2,000 each. The Classroom of the Future Award, which will be announced Saturday, going to a K-12 teacher who incorporates AIC in the classroom. Kicker prizes are supported by Educational Legacy Fund, Alaska NSF, EPSCoR, Mount McKinley Bank, and Respect. Competitors are eligible for kickers prizes as well as the top 4 cash prizes. Want to vote on your favorite ideas? Fan favorite voting offers you a chance to select your favorite idea in each division. Recipients will receive $100 and a unique Lego trophy. Thank you to Chris Maroc Allstate for sponsoring the award. Cast your votes once per day, starting Friday the 14th and closing at noon, Friday the 21st. Let's get started with presentations. Each competitor has 5 minutes to present their ideas, followed by 7 minutes of questions from the judges panel. There will be time at the end of the program to ask any follow-up questions from any of the competitors. Up first is Cruz Collin, presenting 4 Elements Hybrid Energy System. Let me know when you're ready and give me a thumbs up once the timer starts. Please start your presentation.
All right, everyone, let's get started. So my project is the 4 Elements Hybrid Energy System, and it's a sustainable energy technology fit for the future. Next slide, please. All right, so what is the problem? We have 3 big problems here: climate change, lack of adaptability in current renewable energy generation methods, and a dependency on consistent weather and climate for current methods. So what I mean by a lack of adaptability in current renewable energy infrastructure is that, for example, if it needs to be windy for wind turbines to work, it needs to be sunny for solar panels to generate energy, and for hydroelectric dams, you need consistent water supply, otherwise they have to turn the dams off. While that might seem kind of basic and simple, my invention is going to tackle this issue as it takes a hybrid approach to renewable energy and therefore decreases the dependency on consistent weather and climate patterns. Next slide, please. All right, my idea can be seen over to the right. So what it is it combines 4 different aspects of renewable energy generation methods into a single modular unit that can be distributed anywhere on the planet and generate consistent electricity. So it combines wind energy, solar energy, thermoelectric energy, as well as hydroelectric energy. And I would love to talk more about this, but I know I only have 5 minutes. So next slide, please. All right, why did I do it? So there are several reasons why I did it. I did it, for one, to reduce the dependency on consistent weather and climate patterns. that the renewable energy sector is currently dependent on, as I mentioned before, to create an energy system that is, non-dependent on consistent weather patterns as much as fossil fuels. So it's a renewable energy system that you can turn on any time of the day, any day of the week, and it will generate consistent electricity due to its hybrid nature, just as dependent as fossil fuels. So it doesn't matter what the weather is, what the climate is, rain or shine, snowy, hot, it'll always generate energy due to its hybrid nature. And also, it also addresses the issue of the lack of availability of renewable energy to economically disadvantaged communities. The reason it does that is because it's a much cheaper way, as it can be scaled to any size depending on who the user is and the target market is. Next slide, please. All right, important innovation aspects. I'd love to talk all day about this, but I just put two different parts that I think might confuse people. So the solar panel, what I actually am doing with it is it actually has a heated top. So what it has is 4 individual heaters underneath, which you can see from that diagram. And it heats the surface to melt off any snow or ice that might be blocking the sun from reaching the top of the solar panel. Therefore, it can be used in really cold temperatures too. And if it's snowing, doesn't matter. It will still be able to be clear enough that once the sun does shine, the solar panel will then be operational. And a thermoelectric generator, I could talk all day about that. It's to the side. I'd love judges to ask me questions about it because it's very interesting. But basically, you have thermoelectric generator cells on the side and an interior heating coil, which then, I can explain that later. That's going to take too much time. So next slide, please. All right, who will benefit? So my people on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, they're my main inspiration. I'm actually Oglala Lakota, and improving their way of life and their state of life is a really big deal to me because my whole life I've just seen how much my people suffer, and I'm just tired of it. And I believe through renewable energy, we can actually bring not only our ways forward to the world, but we can also help to better our own selves, and we can also help to have a better quality of life in our own right. Also, isolated in rural communities, they will benefit hugely due to its off-grid nature. And it's also all people of the world that are interested in a sustainable future, quite simply because it is, one, it's renewable energy, and two, it's efficient and consistent renewable energy. So it helps people that might not quite be okay with renewable energy, like, oh, if it's not sunny, I can't have any energy. No, it actually solves that problem. It's just as reliable potentially as fossil fuels. So there's no need to be worried about that. Next slide, please. All right, so where and how will it be manufactured? So where? Initially, I want it to be manufactured on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, again, to provide jobs for my people. And once the innovation is complete and proven, manufacturing can occur all over the world, but preferably in underserved communities, because again, this is a technology for them. It's a renewable energy alternative for the people that cannot afford millions of dollars to install a giant wind turbine. They need smaller units that are effective. Oh, okay. Wait. Whoa, we're done? We're done? Okay.
Are you ready for some questions from our judges?
Sure, go. Yep, go for it.
Judges
Sounds
will
great.
each get to ask a question in particular order. Starting off the questions will be Jack Wilbur.
Yes, so very interesting approach. A couple issues that I see is that it looks like the water energy device is meant for the bottom of stream beds.
Yes.
And I'm concerned that during periods of high flow, that there is going to be debris moving along the bottom of the river that'll strike and damage the device. And then also I'm concerned about the wind generator in periods of high wind. What happens there? I read your little abstract. You talked about the blades being easily remanufactured and stuff like that, but still I'm concerned about the damage in those two conditions. What can you say about that?
Yes. So for the wind stability, I've actually gone through several tests, and I do believe if I add crossbars on the top, it's kind of hard to explain, I'm so sorry, but basically I add crossbars on the top of the wind turbine, Then I secure those crossbars to the ground, almost like a tent, so to speak, in a way. And so when the wind goes really fast, instead of it blowing over due to high winds, it'll actually stay stable because there'll be like a tent structure on top that will allow those blades to continue to spin very fast, but it won't be enough to actually push them over. So it'll increase the stability that way. And then as far as the hydroelectric turbine, I was thinking the best way to deal with that problem, I also thought of it, was that we could probably have a net that's set up across on the bottom that's level with the hydroelectric generator. So that way the net will catch any large debris and will stop it from hitting into the hydroelectric generator and breaking it. So basically a net structure set right in front of it, so it catches all of the logs and stones and any bigger debris that would otherwise damage it.
Okay,
More
thank you.
explanation?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. It's all yours, John.
Next bit. Let's go.
Yeah, you asked somebody to ask more about the thermoelectric generator. So what more can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting technology. So I took, for this, at least for the prototype, I took thermoelectric cells. Do you know what those are?
Vaguely, yes.
Vaguely, okay. So basically I took multiple thermoelectric cells, I lined them up along a metal, basically a hollowed out metal square bar. And inside the metal bar, I have a heated copper coil. And that heated copper coil is powered by the solar panel. So it's like a closed system. So the solar panel then heats the interior of this this bar, so to speak. And then that heated bar heats one side of the thermoelectric generator cells. And this side that's facing outside, so that's not facing the inside of the bar, is cold due to wind and other factors. So it creates a large temperature gap between the two sides, therefore generating more energy than it would if I was just using the solar technology. It's hard to explain in 2 minutes, but
No, I got it. Thank you.
I got to work with what I got. I'm sorry. So, all right. Any other questions?
Oh, so hey, looking at this and reading through everything, this seems like it's really complicated. How hard is this going to be able to maintain this, especially in rural areas? Here in Alaska, we have places that it takes 2 or 3 days to maybe get a part or something like that. So how do you see maintaining these?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I think it's a really important thing to bring up. So the system is actually not as complicated as it might appear with my 3D model that I've used. So a big advantage of this system is that a lot of these parts you could in theory replace with just everyday objects. So for example, the wind turbine, I've purposefully used inverted plastic sheets for the prototype. So you could literally just go to any store and find, oh wait, are we almost done? No, okay, good. Sorry. So you can sorry, I'm scared now. So you can basically go to any store and find a flat plastic sheet or any sheet that's bendable, and you could use that as a replacement part while you're waiting for other repair parts to come in, for example. And then for the hydroelectric generator, each part, I didn't put this in the actual display because I have limited slides, but basically it's a segmented approach. So you have multiple segments that can make the hydroelectric generator as long as you want or as short as you want. So if a segment breaks, you can then order another segment, but in the meantime, you just basically make the segment slightly shorter. Again, it's hard to explain without my images and visuals. Normally I present this idea with 30 minutes, but I don't have 30 minutes, so I'm working with what I got. Was that enough, or would you want more?
If anybody else
Hello?
has another question.
All right, I'm ready, guys. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'll do my best.
I see 1:15.
A minute 15, that's a million years. Let's do it. Who has another question?
So
Oh,
this is
go ahead,
Jack. Okay, so on the thermoelectric generator, and I understand how that works. So, but you're using energy off the solar panel to drive the thermoelectric generator, rather than using the electricity off of the solar panel itself. So are you saying that the energy that comes off the solar panel, the thermoelectric generator, will generate more energy than it's receiving from the solar panel?
Yes, it will do that because the solar panel is only heating the interior of the coil. And because there's more cells, you actually get more energy output than you do input because the inside's going to be a lot hotter than the outside. And thermoelectric generators generate energy from a temperature gradient. So you're going to have a larger temperature gradient because of the solar panel. So it actually does generate more energy, but it's because you use one aspect of the system to power another system that's then harnessing the outer energy. I'm not quite sure how else to say that.
How does the
You're-
system decide whether to use the energy from the thermoelectric generator or directly from the solar panel itself? Because there's going to be times, if it's in warm weather, when the thermoelectric generator is not going to be as efficient as when it's cold. So how does the system decide to use the solar energy electrical directly rather than passing it kind of through the thermoelectric generator, or will it always go through the thermoelectric generator?
in a simple version, it should always go through the thermoelectric generator, but in possibly a future alteration, I would have basically a simple computer inside that would scan the weather patterns and the temperature and say, okay, it's time to shut off the thermoelectric generator and use the solar panel energy. That would be in a future version. In my current version, it doesn't do that, but in future, I would definitely think that would be a really good idea because we want it to be as efficient as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now we're moving on to our next presenter. Our second presenter this evening is Chris Hunter, explaining the idea bioreactor L-filtration biofuel generator. Once you see your slides, can you give me a thumbs up? Timer will start and you're ready to present.
Hi, my name is Chris Hunter, and I'm presenting my idea of bioreactor L-filtration biofuel generator. Next slide. So the problem started with air quality and paradigms being consistently poor due to low winds and intense temperature inversion to stop the generated air pollution from chimneys and oil stoves and what have you. We came up with this as a means to facilitate a project for 501c3 ARC, which stands for Alliance for Reason and Knowledge, which sought to convert the Polaris building into a vertical farm, and they needed a means to heat and power the building while also cleaning up the surrounding pollution. So that's how we came up with this, and wouldn't it be great to turn our air pollution to renewable fuel? Next slide. So the bioreactor generator is basically, this is a exploded view of it. The main reactor housing on the left, and then you have an LED array in the middle, and you've got the gaskets and whatnot, and then the other end plate. And I can go into more detail later on the question and answer, but it found that basically each of these would replace 125 naturally purifying trees or vegetation, offsetting the loss of biodiversity from housing and urban development. And when you tie them together with incoming and outgoing air from a building, you can also achieve heat exchange efficiency by warming up the incoming air as well as cooling down the outgoing air, so you reduce how much heat is being lost from a building. Direct usage benefits are increased thermal efficiency from a heat exchange from incoming and outgoing air in a home or office, direct filtering of the air coming in from the outside as well as the air exiting the building. So basically any particular pollution that would be leaving a building, whether it be dust or debris. No paper elements to change out. So this is a paper element. Fuel can be collected monthly by a local fuel distributor, getting a monthly check to the owner of the home or office, and increase in availability of local biofuel market economy, as well as it can be scaled much like a Bitcoin operation, you can actually have buildings made up entirely of these to convert air pollution into fuel. Next slide. Next, there it is. So manufacturing a joint venture with an entity such as Friendly Bioplastics, you can take biofuels to produce this and create plastics that could be used to actually manufacture this. The retail price point would average to less than $50 per unit after cost, shipping, markup, and taxes. And that's adjusted for manufacturing here in Alaska. Eligible for carbon credit in the manufacturing, as well as a recurring carbon tax credit when it's utilized in a commercial building, such as say an office building or what have you. You could a recurring tax credit when you're utilizing these and producing a biofuel to a local economy by pulling pollution in the air. Next slide. The product valuation. Oh, you guys went too far. The product valuation is annual growth would be as much as 50 million per year during a housing boom, or as little as 1 million per year during an economic low point, where the existing houses would be converted to utilize this. It increases the value of the building by providing an increase of efficiency, as well as having a revenue stream that would increase the value of the building. Next slide. The plan for initial rollout and public display would be in partnership with ARC for first use in Fairbanks, with a promotional plan for Fairbanks residents under basically as a response to January 10th EPA ruling, where we rejected the Fairbanks North Star EPA air cleanup plan, where vice versa, the mayor said solving the air quality issue requires innovative and unique solutions, not cut and paste from 48 after the initial release to Alaskans.
Thank you, Chris. Let's see what questions our judges have about your idea. Asking questions this round will be Brian, Kathleen, and David.
Thank you for your presentation. That was a little hard to hear, but your slides had lots of words on them, so that that helped me a lot. Thank you. So I need a little bit more clarification here, because you talk about a plastic, you talk about a cleaning the air, but you also talk about a fuel. So I'm a little confused on what is the, I get the cleaning the air, and that's good for the inhabitant of the home. Tell me more about the byproduct or the product that you produce.
Okay, so the air is plumbed through the device, which houses an LED array and water, and it causes the air to bubble through water. This bubbling action feeds the algae, and as it cycles through, the algae produces basically a biodiesel oil substance that is then separated in a separate holding tank. So that biodiesel fuel that comes off of it can be converted to become plastic and a separate process.
So just a quick follow-up. So you call it fuel, but it's not used to be burned. It is used only to create plastics. Is that correct?
It can be utilized for both. You can use it as a biofuel, or you can utilize it to make plastic.
Thank you.
All right, I'll jump in. Thanks, Chris. Also was having a little bit of trouble, but I did read read the write-up on this one, and had a minute to kind of digest it. My question is related to the energy consumption. Have you looked into what kind of the components, the circ pump, the LED array, and how that relates to the end result? So what kind of energy consumption are we looking to plug this into your household?
You would increase the energy consumption by as much as 25 watts. The actual airflow from a squirrel fan, which is typically on a forced air heating system, doesn't change the same horsepower of air pump is utilized to push the air through. It surprisingly doesn't take very much air to bubble through water.
So you think about 500 watts or less would cover all that.
Easily, yes.
Thanks.
So this is, hi, I'm Kathleen. And so this interesting idea. Tell me a little bit about this PM 2.5, you know, maybe 40 days a year. Fairbanks has got high levels of PM 2.5 pollution. So what are we doing with the rest of the days in the year?
The particulate pollution exists all days of the year, whether it be PM 2.5, which is heavily noticed during a certain number of days per year, but also carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, partially burned hydrocarbons, fully unburned hydrocarbons, and particulate pollutants, including things such as pollen, dust, debris, and other hydrocarbon and long and short chain hydrocarbons can be utilized. This captures it, and that becomes a feedstock for the algae, which produces a biodiesel-like substance.
So even on days when the monitors locally aren't measuring any significant PM 2.5 pollution, this algae is still incorporating some of something from the atmosphere.
Yes, it would be continuously pulling pollutants from the atmosphere.
So what about, are you concerned about buildup of some of the PM 2.5 has got mercuries, it's got some metals in it? You concerned that that would be toxic to the algae?
Only in sufficient quantity, but when you look at how many gallons would be flowing through this and the way it would settle out in the separation tank, those heavy metals would end up in the bottom and would occasionally need to be removed. And if any were left in the output stream, it would be essentially locked up into plastic. It was used for plastic.
So you don't see that that the algae, I mean, does the algae, will the algae cycle? It's got a life cycle.
Yes, the algae will eventually life cycle out, and as long as the system keeps running and you keep eventually adding more water to the system, because the water will evaporate out, it will keep it alive. For your PM 2.5, this came about. Math science is kind of a fun thing. We actually took a diesel generator back when I lived in Wasilla and ran the
Oh, Christopher.
generator, and it was bubbling. The exhaust gas full generator was a heavy polluter, and we weren't getting, like enough to run the engine like perpetually. That wasn't happening, but we were scrubbing the exhaust significantly.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the judges?
Yeah, I've got a quick follow-up. So I know oil companies have been looking for the biofuel solution, and it does usually require quite a bit of energy. It's kind of like cultivation, making sure the health of the organism to do its job. But it seems like in this case, the goal is not just the production of biofuel, it is also as a means to purify the air. But could you characterize that and how it is different?
So instead of introducing heat waves, we're already in a building which is warm enough to sustain life, and we already have the right elements in place to keep it alive. So by the addition of air, which brings in the pollutants and hydrocarbons and other particulate matter, and bubbling it, like preventing it from getting stagnant and preventing it from basically filling itself and having it circulate through the system. It would keep the algae alive. The LED lights keep the life on it. You have the air, you have the warmth, you have the water, you have everything you need to keep it alive. And on the separator tank, as oil, we know, floats on water, that's what the coming out of the outflow pipe from that continually to a separate tank. It's not like you're setting up and running all of this completely separate in the building.
Thank you. Now presenting is Orly Knudsen, explaining the idea collaborative field data collection solution. Once you see your slides, give me a thumbs up. Timer will start and you're ready to present.
Hello, my name is Orly Knudsen. I'm a staff member for the Division of Geological and Geophysical Surveys. We are a department under the state of Alaska. I'm also a graduating student for the UAF CTC Information Technology Specialist Program. I have a few team members with me. They are Christopher Ramey, Mike Hendricks, and Amy McPherson. And together we have developed a solution for collaborative field data collection. Next slide. We support the DGGS geologists who collect field data in remote areas while mapping the state of Alaska. As of 2022, only 21% of the state had been mapped to the standard inch to mile scale, with even less area available in digital DGGS publications as represented by the brown boxes in the map on the right. This leaves quite a bit of mapping to be done, and the red boxes show the planned 2023 field season. Note that most of the map is white, meaning much of the state needing to be mapped is also void of internet access, cell phone coverage, or stable, reliable satellite broadband internet, as indicated by the shades of blue taken from the FCC mobile broadband coverage data from 2022. Next slide. This is a problem because the tools the geologists use are now digital: tablets, iPhones, laptops. In our office, the geologists access an online geoportal to manage, collaborate on, and present their data. In our office, but with no internet available in remote areas of Alaska, access to the online geoportal is non-existent. With each new field season, the geologists gather thousands of data points and photographs and need to collaborate daily in order to plan their routes and traverses for the upcoming day. Next slide. So we came up with a solution for them, and that's this unit you see in the photo. It's an OnLogic unit purchased from onlogic.com. It contains an Intel i7 processor. We have added 32 gigabytes of RAM and a terabyte of disk storage. This unit is completely installed, managed, and maintained in-house, and we have no monthly bills or contracts to maintain while using this unit. Next slide. The cool features for this unit are that it's fanless. The fins on its back that you saw in the previous photo are the heat sink directly attached to the CPU. There are no moving parts inside the unit. It takes up a footprint of 8 by 8 inches and weighs about 8 pounds. So 2 of them fit in the backpack or the Pelican case you see on the left-hand side. It has regular display ports, Ethernet RJ45 ports, USB ports, and plastic plugs to fill all of those ports while the unit is deployed out in the field. It supports its own wireless access point and supports all the common protocols that our digital devices use these days. And it runs off of 110 volt power, and it's fairly affordable for less than $2,000 for all the parts and components. Next slide. We install open source software, including the Ubuntu server 20.04 operating system. We've installed host APD and DNS mask to host the wireless access point. We've installed Samba for sharing files and field photos while the geologists are out in the field, providing a backup for them. It runs the Apache Tomcat web server, and the licensed software that does run is the ArcGIS Enterprise software supporting the GeoPortal. Next slide. We deployed these units in the 2022 field season and received positive feedback. The geologists reported having a seamless collaboration using this unit. It was helping them manage their increasingly large data sets, and compared to previous prototypes, it dramatically decreased system downtime. Next slide. Looking forward, we plan to deploy the units in 2023, add any features requested, and possibly develop and prepare for deploying them in natural disaster emergency response. Thank you.
Hold on, Orly.
Thank you.
Beginning with Justin, followed by Jessica and Jack. What are your questions for this idea?
Hi, Orly. I think this is really pretty interesting because this is a problem that I know DGGS is wrestling with, but there are a lot of other organizations that are wrestling with it too. So the way I understand it is it's kind of like a mobile Wi-Fi point. I assume there's probably like a satellite connection that provides the access.
No, it's a self-contained unit. So the software and the GeoPortal that our geologists use is pre-installed. They prepare and upload their data to the unit while it's in the office. Then they take it with them into the field. So it's completely standalone. It doesn't require any connection to anything else besides their local base camp devices.
So it doesn't communicate data that you collect in the field back to DGGS. It's so that you can have crews all over the field working together.
No, at this time, it's if we had two different sets of geologists out in the field, they would each take their own field portal. Then when their season ends, they bring the field portal back and collaborate that data into the office-based GeoPortal.
Okay. And so you mentioned disaster and emergency response. I assume that it's probably adaptable to other applications. I'm thinking survey crews or firefighting crews, or, you know, really anybody that has a field-based remote application.
Absolutely. It's basically a server. So if they use software of any type currently in the office, then they could install that on the field portal and take that with them for use while away from modern civilization.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was very clear. I thought it was concise, and I thought you did an excellent job with time. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I noticed the coverage map of the mobile broadband from 2022. You know, something that has changed that since that time is you can now purchase mobile LEO satellite stations with very low monthly charges. So you can connect all those devices to the internet. Can you explain to me why this is a better option than using a mobile LEO solution?
With the satellites, and you're right, it is an ever evolving situation. So we anticipate even within a few years, the current circumstances may change. But
like a few months, maybe.
Yeah.
It really is quickly changing.
Yeah. But my understanding of satellites, even if they're LEOs, so low Earth orbiting, that there are potentially still outages. So if the satellite is, if its signal is blocked by, for example, if you're at the base of a mountain range and its signal can't see that through that angle, then that may cause some issues. I'm not sure if weather would dictate that, but this is our solution for now. And as soon as you pay for the equipment up front, there is no ongoing contract or monthly fee that you're responsible for.
I could add to that answer too. This is Mike Hendricks with Orly, and partially why we use our enterprise portal in the office is to cheaply and host huge volumes of supporting data, elevation data, raster data, seismic data, geophysical data, and we have petabytes of it here. And this allows us to take big chunks of that to the field with us, and it costs nothing more. Even with satellite connectivity, when you start using some of that big data, it gets to be problematic. So that's one of the big advantages of that portal, and the ability to produce this field version of it and use that capability for extended periods of time on the field is a big part of why we did it. And why I think it'll last for quite a while, even if there's capability in some other ways.
That makes sense. But just so I'm clear, are you saying that when you access, I mean, let's say you were in Fairbanks and you had access to a great internet connection. When you access the Geo portal, are you saying you need to download all that data to a local device and use your bandwidth for that? Or are you simply mostly using upload?
Well, when we're here, we have a on-premise portal that stores our data, organizes it, and people use it and quickly move data around as they're viewing it. So then when they go to the field and they want to access that data, if it's via some kind of satellite communication, they'd have to pull all that data to them. And
so you're saying they have to download those?
Yes. So now it's just available to them right then and there for.
Got it. I was thinking it was more of just an upload to get to.
No, it's basically making it very fast for them right away, and they can collaborate every night.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yes, I have a question. So I just want to make sure I understand that you said that people are out there with various devices, that they are downloading data to tablets and so on and so forth. And so do I understand that then when they come back to base camp is when they download their data to this device?
Correct.
And
when they go out each morning, they check out the updated data. The 15 of them or so go out there, they do their individual work. The devices as designed aren't talking to each other out in the field. They come back, they all synchronize, and then that evening they work together, see what everybody did, come up with the next day's plan. And then in the morning, everyone gets all the updates from that evening, from everyone's work yesterday and all their plans from the night before. And then they can move with all that update. If you don't have this field portal, you can do this kind of thing, but everyone's individual data you can't share amongst each other. And that synchronization is a big deal between the people each evening.
so this device is in no way a computer. It's just a storage device that allows.
Well, it is a server, it is a computer
Okay.
server, and there is capability on there to do additional analysis, and they can connect their GIS software to it and other software to it.
Okay.
And that's where it could be useful in emergency response. We load data onto it. You go to a place that has no internet connectivity. Yeah, you can get some satellite connectivity, but you have access to all that big data available to be able to coordinate every evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's take a moment to highlight our kickers, which award $2,000 each. Arctic Kicker sponsored by Respec Engineering, Alaska Student Kicker by Mount McKinley Bank, Climate Adaptation Kicker by NSF Alaska EPSCoR, and Sustainability Kicker sponsored by the Educational Legacy Fund. The top 10 ideas are competing for these 4 kickers in addition to the top 4 cash prizes. We only have 2 presentations left for this evening. Next up is Mamie with innovating accessible, affordable, and Alaskan-specific legal products. Remember to watch the countdown clock, and once you see your slides, please give me a thumbs up to start the timer, and the virtual stage is yours.
Up, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you turn your
Okay,
camera?
thank you so much. Sorry, I just burned some time there. So here we go. Hopefully everybody can see me. Hello, nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for having me. I can't see the ticker, so I'm just going to go till they cut me off. Next slide, please. So I am a local attorney, and today this may feel a little bit like a fire hose, but we need to have a critical conversation. As a lawyer, I have to give you the traditional legal disclaimer you've probably heard with any legal presentation. I'll let you pause this at your own time and read this. So next slide, please. So we have a huge problem in the state of Alaska. I don't need to speak very loudly for folks to understand intuitively that we have this problem. An increasing number of Alaskans cannot access basic legal assistance in both civil and criminal matters. There's also a huge gap in the market for innovative new products that would help meet what is going to be the future of my profession. The long short of it is there's a few reasons or a few things that people hear that really underscore this issue. So first, there is a huge attorney shortage, which I'll talk to soon. So most people are met when they have a legal problem where they're told to get a lawyer and they can't find one. The other issue that we have is that legal services tend to be reactive versus proactive. A lot of folks that do go to lawyers are told come back when it explodes. That doesn't work for average Alaskans, especially those on limited means, which is going to the next one. The legal services that are currently available when we ran all of the data, and can you go back one slide, please? Is most people are told the retainer will be $5,000. That's the average I'm hearing locally in Fairbanks. And for folks, that is very expensive for if you're trying to seek legal services, because some of the statistics we're finding, like seniors, the average senior may have $200 in their bank account. So it's essentially they're getting priced out of the market. Also, the low income individuals in our community cannot necessarily get access because the lawyers, which are limited in Fairbanks, cannot necessarily serve them. And so they often hear, we can't afford to take your case for less. So that's a huge barrier access for those individuals. And then again, we're always in the trenches with our informal community partners, but all of the available nonprofits and trench workers that are currently trying to solve these issues are facing financial issues themselves. And we hear from like Alaska Legal Services, a lot of different senior centers that funding has been cut and they can't afford to essentially try to spearhead some of the things that we're doing. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of how my profession is doing. As you can see, there's a lot of red on this slide. I won't go into detail, but essentially we're losing bar members at 3.9% every year. And there is not going to be for the next foreseeable decade, the backfill of lawyers. Next slide. And then this is just a slide that gives you the service populations. We start breaking it down, how we do our analysis. I'm a data nut, so it's really important that we get to where we figure out our populations. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then this is one that just shows you kind of what's happening. And again, some trends on how often property crimes happen and other things. So we have a lot of issues we need to address. Next slide, please. So what's our big idea? We want to have legal resources for all. We want to focus on local, affordable, accessible, understandable, adding value. We want preventative and proactive legal forms because they're less expensive, and we want to empower Alaskans. Next slide, please. So here's how we do it. And in a nutshell, I'm going to give you the 1-minute version of this. So we need to start with community needs assessments or rapid world appraisals. This is where we listen and respond to our communities. And then we move into actually a service population improvement plan. So with this, then we develop goals and strategies for how we're going to determine performance measures. Then we move toward beneficial activities. And again, we have a trailer we're going to be taking out to the bush. We're going to be looking at, okay, maybe a written product, maybe that's not going to work. We might need to do legal clinics. We're really thinking expansively about how we are going to solve some of the myriad of problems for the people that we serve. And then we go into accountability with our community and making sure that we're meeting performance measures and we're taking our hard-earned dollars and reinvesting them back in the community. We are a for-profit, that's a for-profit with purpose, and the plan is to leverage the sale of bread and butter forms to be able to do community initiatives. Next slide, please. So to move forward, what we're doing is our goal is to provide Alaskans accessible, affordable, and added value legal products. The goal is to move toward preventative measures because that's less expensive and that helps folks. We want to leverage scalability on the e-commerce side, but also meet people out in the bush and have offline tech-free solutions. And so the plan basically is to every year be able to full cycle. So this year we actually have a free senior legal forms initiative we're working on, and we are providing the following forms you see on the screen free to any senior in Alaska that wants them. And these are basically 3 forms that address 3 major issues with Alaska seniors. So with that, I know that was a little bit of a fire hose, but thank you for your time and attention, and let's have a conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mamie. John Bittner will start the questions, followed by Jim and Brian.
Thank you so much. So can you just get in a nutshell, what is the innovation that you're proposing here? Like I'm
Okay.
I'm in agreement with the legal, but what exactly?
I'll give
is
you an
it that
example. I'll give you an example. There are market products that don't exist. One of them that I'm gonna give you that we just worked on was the Animal Care Directive. We actually were running data on seniors, and there is a hesitancy rate, especially during COVID, for seniors to get timely medical attention because they were concerned that if their animals were taken, which the standard is, if a senior goes to the hospital, the police come and get the animal, it goes to the shelter, and 10 days later, if the shelter deems that it's necessary, they will put that animal down. So it was getting out within the senior community that they were having that problem. And seniors were literally saying, I'm not going to call 911 because I love my animal. This is my animal, and they're going to kill my animal. And so it was creating hesitancy to get access to basically FMH and other community clinics and things. So what we did is we actually developed a care directive for animals that helps seniors proactively address the problem. So if they have to go in for a heart attack or COVID, they can say, hey, go to my animal care directive. And then they're not worrying about if their animal is going to be euthanized. They can focus on their well-being. And so a lot of our stuff is really multidisciplinary. We also look a lot at ACE reduction in children. One of the things that I'm working on right now is a childcare agreement that embeds ACE reduction strategies to help really commandeer our helpers so that we can reduce ACE scores. So really that's a multidisciplinary approach. And then to boot, what we're looking at is we're looking at innovating and toward products that might not be written products. You have to understand we have a huge Native population here. They are a customary oral tradition. They have their own way of communicating, and we need to communicate in a way that they understand and meet their specific needs on their terms. Our goal here is not to tell people what to do, but to really help focus the conversation and figure out how are we going to move toward a future where when people have real problems in their lives, they can access timely preventative tools to address those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So quick question. So, I mean, you see advertisements for like LegalZoom and stuff like that. Is this kind of along those lines? And
No.
are they going to fill this out? Are they going to like pull these forms
No,
from your
no.
website and
So
fill them
we are
out?
not LegalZoom. Sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm really passionate about this, but no, we are not LegalZoom. We've analyzed all of our competitors. They're not true competitors. They are data miners. When you give your mother's social security number, you are authorizing them to sell that information to third-party affiliates. What we're doing is we're about service, and we're about augmenting the trench workers, those informal community partners that are already out there trying to make a dent in some of the more horrible issues like domestic violence, assaults. It goes on and on and on. And what we're here to do is look at the tundra fires and help put them out with that collaborative partnership. So one example is we basically have provided a free license for our free forms, and we're developing libraries through our informal community partners. So even after we're done with 2023, seniors will be able to go to their local senior center. They'll be able to go to Ravens Landing, out to North Pole, their senior center, and to be able to access our stuff for free. And they don't need the internet. But no, we don't data mine. And our
Well, no, and I get that, but are they going to have to fill these forms out? I mean, banker, I deal with legal documents all the time, and
yes,
they're
it depends.
confusing.
Yeah, it depends. What we're doing is plain English. The goal here is we need to figure out how to communicate effectively with our service populations and provide them products where they don't need a lawyer to fill it out. So like our animal care directive, the local senior center was very kind, and they put together a focus group for us, and we were able to go through and literally burn through and figure out how can we improve these to match the literacy rate, to match what is comfortable, to frame the question, frame the solution in a way that people will understand when they use these. And then if our service population wants something like LegalZoom where it's a portal online, we're going to provide that. But if it's somebody who says, I don't have the internet because I'm off grid, which you saw the image from the slide from the other presentation on broadband, then they can access the version of the form which is completely offline, and they can fill it out by hand. So for us, it's about meeting and pivoting as we're working with service populations.
Thanks, Mamie. I really enjoy your passion and the purpose behind this. You also say it's affordable, and I'm trying to understand, as a for-profit, how are you making money? So can you give me an example?
Yes.
You mentioned
So,
childcare, like a childcare operator. Tell me
yes,
how
yes.
you provide a service and make ends meet.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're going to provide bread and butter legal forms that everybody needs. These are forms for families. We're going to charge the fair market value for those forms. And then we're going to take all of that profit, and then we're going to be able to basically work out service populations that have not had access. Like one thing I want to do is provide a legal packet for violent crime victims. So when they come out of that ICU with a gunshot wound, they have one place where they can start going through and again, creating access for them to say, are you concerned about, can you make financial decisions for yourself? If the answer is no, here's a 1-page power of attorney for financial decisions. Find your helper, get the things in order and help them. And again, a lot of our work is with and in conjunction with our informal community partners. So it's an ever evolving conversation about our place and how we can augment. But the idea is to build out. So find those bread and butter forms, those products, like for instance, Miller Trusts, that's going to be one, 1,000-year trusts, figuring out, is there a way for us to create a product that is going to be one of those hot ticket items and then build forward. And if I built out, so just so you have an idea, because the slide was pretty short there, but the market for traditional legal services right now, the revenues are like 136 million every year. If I hit e-commerce, I do federal forms, then I'm tackling a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we might go and decide to sell, basically they are federal level forms on through our e-commerce portal and bring that money home. And so we're looking at, again, we have to pivot quickly because there's basically all these tundra fires, that's how I see it. And we need to figure out, for the limited dollar we have, how are we going to invest that forward in projects that are going to make a dent in some of these tundra fires, and then move the conversation forward with the community, and then actually have that accountability built in so that we can build a sustainable infrastructure to start having and tackling these issues, and then augmenting the good work that's already being done. And so I have a lot of informal community partners, and we're building that every day because it's, again, a conversation, and a critical conversation at that. So thank you.
Do those bread and butter customers, do they need to know or care about your end business?
Well, what's interesting is it's a conversation. People really like the idea of paying forward. So if I'm a mom and I want a maternal healthcare directive and I feel like, oh, I'm being heard, I'm being empowered, but to know that that also will be maybe something that will help somebody who's in a domestic violence situation or somebody who's having another issue, there's a huge sell there. And again, I have to usually explain to people, we're not a nonprofit, but there's a reason, because we don't want to underfund. We don't want to take grant money from our informal community partners. So thank you.
Thank you. Our last competitor this evening is Casey Leaker, showcasing the Skilac Outdoor Gear Rifle Dry Bag. Casey, make sure you can see your slides and give us a thumbs up to start your presentation.
Okay, can you see me?
Yep, now we can.
Okay, all right. Hey, my name's Casey. I'm a fire engineer with the Kenai Fire Department, and I'm a UAF alumni with their fire science program. And I'm also a registered hunting guide in the state of Alaska. And we can move to the next slide. And I will talk to you a little bit about my invention. It's a dry bag that is made out of Dyneema, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about Dyneema. I have a few visual aids here with me. It's a textile that was originally invented, went by the name of Cuban fiber, and it was originally invented for sailboats, for racing sailboats, and it was developed for its tensile strength. It's 15% stronger than steel, so Dyneema claims, and it is extremely light for its weight. So it's starting to be utilized in backcountry tents, and it's used for anchorage and large vessels for their mooring, but it's really amazing stuff. And my idea here is, this is the 2.0 version of my prototype, is a dry bag that you can put in your pocket when you're done using it for protection of a firearm. Can you move to the next slide, please? So I got the idea. I was trying to find this product, and it just was not commercially available. I was sure that someone made a Dyneema rifle dry bag, and no one does. So that kind of prompted me to start pursuing this. And behind me, I have a visual aid. It's my pack raft. You can see in this slide, we went on a pack raft sheep hunt, and it's a very cool vessel that can be transported in one's backpack. So you can, we hiked a very long ways before we started using these, but you don't want to bring any of the traditional dry bags with you because they're just too burdensome, too heavy. And so one of the downsides about these is that you get wet. You're low to the water, you absolutely get wet. So that's where this kind of came from. Could you move to the next slide, please? So there's the, you're looking at the 1.0 version of the prototype there. And that's the whole selling point, is that I have another visual aid. There's a rifle in here, under a pound. I don't have a scale that can accurately measure how much it actually weighs because it's so minimal. So I need to get a more sensitive scale, but it rolls up extremely small. It functions perfect and it's watertight. Can we move to the next slide, please? And it's large enough, it fits most rifles commonly used in big game hunting in the state of Alaska, but it's also not exclusive to firearms by any means. It can be used for surveying equipment, optics, any long piece of gear that traditionally wouldn't go in a dry bag. Can we move to the next slide, please? And so here's another big point that I wanted to make, is that this can serve as an auxiliary water reservoir. I've been in situations quite often where you go up a mountain, you plan to spend a few days up on top, elevations, close to 4,000, 5,000 feet where you're camping, and there is no water sources available. All those mountain springs are lower. You end up doing day trips to go down to lower elevations to get water for cooking, get water for drinking. And is any good piece of gear in the style of hunting and outdoor exploration that I'm accustomed to is everything is on your backpack. There's no base camps, or everything is on you at all times. And so with this, you can fill up this pulls double duty. You can fill this up with water, roll it up tight, place it upright in your backpack, and it is heavy, but you can take water up the hill with you, which is very advantageous.
Thank you, Casey. Are you ready to answer the judges' questions about the Ski-Lac Outdoor Gear Rifle Dry Bag?
Yes.
Are we ready for me here? Oh,
So.
Oh, we're good to go? All right. Casey, thank you. That's a very, you've got lots of adventures, and that was a good presentation. So how difficult is it to find the Dyneema fabric? Is that easy to access? And
yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the sourcing, because that's a huge part of my business plan, is that all the Dyneema can be sourced within the United States. It's made in Arizona. And my whole plan with this, it's I actually have a little visual aid. The carbon footprint of Dyneema, according to Dyneema, mind you, but
you lift that up a little. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Here we go. So of all the textiles, Dyneema being at the top, it has the lowest carbon footprint of any fibers currently on the market, just above cotton, hemp, and nylon. And so it can be sourced in the United States, and it can be manufactured in the United States. Alaska right now, you're in the headquarters of Ski-Lac Outdoor Gear, my garage, and where all the manufacturing is taking place. But it's important to me that, the bulk of manufacturing carbon footprint is the transport version of overseas or partially assembled in America to overseas to back to where the item's going to be distributed. This item its niche is going to be Alaska and the Western states hunting community. And so it makes the most sense to me economically and then environmentally to produce it in the Western states and Alaska.
So I didn't, so it looks like a roll top with Velcro. Is that the clothes?
It's buckles. I'm sorry, I couldn't see my screen when I was holding up, so I wasn't sure if I was getting everything in frame.
So it's like a dry bag, but closure. And
Yeah,
then, but
some-
you don't have any straps on it, like you could sling it over your shoulder to carry it.
I haven't yet because that compromises the watertight aspect to it. But once we start sewing more, that's just another fail point. And I have been toying around with the idea of adding some D loops to so you can lash it in securely to your vessel or pack.
I would think that would be, especially like if you're carrying water too, to throw it over your backpack or shoulder. Yeah. Oh, very good. I'm good. David, I'm not sure who's next.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen, and thanks, Casey, for your presentation. Yeah, it sounds like Dyneema. I hadn't heard of it before this. Is pretty cool stuff. Takeaway is the fabric isn't really a new invention, but but the application is probably would be new in this case. So my question would be, how would you, I guess, one, what would the strategy be to keep imitators at bay as you move into production?
Well, right now I'm in line to talk to a patent attorney, and a friend of mine I went to high school with is an attorney, and he's been advising me a little bit to, not advertise anything just yet before I find out if this item is in fact patentable or not, because it's using existing technology. Like you pointed out, it's nothing new, but to answer your question, I don't know just yet. I'm hoping to gain a little more clarity in coming weeks on that.
And I had a quick second, if I could jump in. The application potential for like a portable water container seems like that has huge potential if it doesn't already exist, and especially some of the international areas of the world. Had you thought of that?
Yeah. This design probably wouldn't be the best way to do it. I've had times where I've been camping on glacial rivers where there's too much silt. It will gum up a water filter, like with just one use, and your water filter is done because the silt corrupts it. And I've resorted to using duffel bags and tubs. That would probably be the design I would go for, but I think Dyneema would be a very suitable material to do so with.
Thanks. Justin, I'm good.
So I think, again, this is a really interesting idea. I think one of the questions that I have, you mentioned the strength of the material. The first question I would have is, how does it hold up to being cycled or thermal cycling? Like if you take this out for a season and it freezes and then it warms up and then it freezes and then it warms up, are you like, do you need to replace it every season, or is it durable beyond just abrasion and rock protection and that sort of thing?
It's part of the rating I was talking about, and its carbon footprint is the idea that Dyneema is so you buy once and you never have to replace it. The seams may fail. I would like to offer some kind of lifetime warranty through my company that if it's a manufacturer defect, it's good for life, and the material itself, if cared for properly, regardless of thermal cycling, it should remain intact for a very long time.
Well, and you mentioned the seams, and that was going to be my other question is, you said you can't really sew like straps or slings or that sort of thing on it because it becomes a failure point. how are the seams put into the material? Is it difficult to, like, could you tailor this material for other sorts of covers into different shapes, or is it really pretty difficult to merge together?
It's quite easy to work with right now. The seams are stitched and then taped with a waterproof seam tape. And that seam, the testing I've done, it's watertight. Like there's no water getting in, there's no water getting out. I imagine, I just got wind that there's an Anchorage startup that makes parachutes for drones, and they're radio frequency welding Dyneema. So I've been wanting to get in touch with them. If you weld the whole thing, then there are no weak points.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, competitors. It is a big deal to make it into the AIC semifinals. We appreciate all the hard work and creativity you put into your ideas. Plus, you all did a fabulous job presenting. Judges, please raise your digital hand if you have any remaining follow-up questions for any of the competitors tonight before we close the session. We will start off this open round of questions with Casey and the Ski-Lac Outdoor Gear Rifle Dry Bag and go in reverse order. Are there any questions for Casey? Brian, you can ask.
Thanks, Casey. Great presentation. Simple question might be, I hope it's not too silly. So if you put water in the bag, and this is amazing material that is waterproof, how easy to dry is that? Is it as simple as you pull it inside out and you put it in the sun for a couple minutes and dries out again so you can put your gun back in it? Or is that it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to be sealing in a firearm with any kind of moisture, but you just pull it inside out, let it air out a little bit, and yes.
David, you can go.
Yeah, just as you were closing, you touched on a welding form of joining the fabric. Is that something that you are considering?
Yes. I am in the process of reaching out to this startup who's doing the welding. I wasn't aware that you could, I knew there was adhesives to bond Dyneema, but I wasn't aware that you could weld it. So I'm trying to pursue that because I think that would end up being the best product available.
Jack?
Yeah, so
Make sure you don't have sound on because it'll feedback loop if you're watching it live.
hello?
Hello.
Yes, so regarding the dry bag, I think we're still on the dry bag, are we?
Yes.
Okay, so regarding the dry bag, so why are you limiting it to rifles? I mean, why not? I mean, I have dry bags, lots of them myself, and some are more intricate that, but a lot of them are just a bigger tube than a rifle. Stuff clothes in it, seal up the top, made in the same fashion. So why are you limiting it to a rifle bag?
The rifle bag was just because there are no commercially available Dyneema rifle bags currently. I have a couple of other ideas for applications with this material. I just don't have prototypes for them yet. So this is my jumping off point for it.
So there are dry bags available made from Dyneema.
There are dry bag, little most commonly little like stuff sacks for clothes. And
right. Yeah, I get it. Okay, thank you. And one other thing too, what do you think the cost of your rifle bag would be?
Right now it cost me about $65 to produce one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any more questions? Nope. Moving on to Mamie Brown with innovating accessible, affordable, and Alaskan specific legal products. Does anybody have questions for Mamie? Kathleen, you can go.
So how, how are people going to find you?
Okay, this is a fun one. So I actually there's two ways people will be able to find us. Right now, we're working on an accessible portal. So we're going to leverage on the one hand, e-commerce and sort of the latest bells and whistles to develop very much a modern structure that people are familiar with, very comparable to LegalZoom essentially, but little on steroids because we want to focus on accessibility. But also we're creating an annual road trip. And I actually have a mobile legal clinic that I'm working on. I actually got the free trailer. We're going to be renovating this. And then every year we're going to do a road trip and meet communities where they're at. And at that point, we'll be providing free legal education for our initiative. And again, connecting with these communities where they are, and then figuring out how we're going to build out to rural Alaska. So my plan is to build up out of where I'm in of course, Fairbanks, but go up to the 1st Judicial District and really build out the capacity for us to be able to meet these rural communities. And this is again why we need to leverage e-commerce sales, tap those markets, and then basically build out through our initiative program and through being on the dirt. So we have boots on the ground is our philosophy. And we're believers in FaceTime as well, meaning actually having in-person opportunities for people to meet us. And again, this is where our informal community partners are so beneficial because, for instance, like we have a commitment, we've provided Meals on Wheels with a free license. They have 430 seniors in Fairbanks North Shore Borough. In the next few weeks, the plan is for them to get these forms for free. That's 430 people that are homebound that I couldn't drive to 430 homes, but now they're going to have that availability. And through Meals on Wheels, they'll be able to communicate back with us and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is maybe where you want to go, or where maybe they're having some struggles to say, hey, what about this issue? Or what about that issue? So it's a real feedback loop, sort of listening cycle. Our philosophy is to lead by listening and really listening to our informal community partners, to listen to those service populations, and then connect the dots and figure out new products that we can be helpful with. So hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin?
So I think a question that I have, this product seems like it addresses a need that a lot of people might not know that they have. And so you've spoken to the education component a little bit, the idea of being proactive versus reactive. I mean, most people don't think they need something like this until something happens. So I appreciate the idea of looking at a proactive approach. Beyond just the manpower constraints in the state of Alaska, is there something unique about these products as compared to something you might get in the lower 48? You mentioned the senior community. I don't know if there are similar products available that are advertised through national organizations. So if you could speak to just a little bit about that, if there are quirks to Alaskan law or if it's just the manpower issue.
Yes, and I'll give you, for just illustrative purposes, some of the ideas that we've had. Hopefully this will illustrate kind of where we're going. So of course, we previously talked about the animal care directive and the babysitter, and essentially childcare is one of the issues. But some of the other ones we've talked about is, for instance, having a Miranda response card. So anybody that's concerned about maybe police issues, or maybe they haven't had a good relationship with police, this would be a card that they could carry in their wallet. And it provides, basically, it's like a pocket attorney. If they're concerned, they can hand this to the police officer, and it's basically telling the police officer, I would like to exercise my Miranda rights. That's one example. Another one is when we're working on customary, or when we're looking at customary oral traditions of Native people, I would like to see every single form to be in their native language with an English translation on the back. And again, we have to develop style sheets with the Native corporations and the Native groups to make sure that we're meeting their platinum level expectations on what their products are going to look like. But it's really about listening to communities and saying, okay, if somebody who's Athabascan wants to solve a problem in their community, they should be able to do that in their own language. And so we have a lot of different ideas about really looking for the market. Another one that pops in my head right now is helping people with quality relationships. That sounds funny that we're diving into relationships. One of the programs I'd like to see, it's a 2-part program where 2 people in a relationship can go. And the first one is understanding their AIC score, so their adverse childhood experience score. And then maybe through a cohabitation agreement, have a way of having that bridge of saying, well, what are we going to do? Like if my mom was an alcoholic and your dad was an alcoholic, that's 2 ACE scores. How are we going to stop the cycle and help people with tools that will say, okay, basically, here's a worksheet that's a cohabitation agreement. And maybe you talk to the other person and say, okay, if my score is 4, your score is 6, how are we going to not pay this forward? Because if we can reduce ACE scores, for instance, and help people with those empowerment tools, and again, for us, the tool is pairing with and creating a cohabitation agreement, something that creates a common dialogue within those relationships. If we can reduce ACE scores from 6 to 4, we're giving people decades of life. And if we can help them reduce that for their children, we could give their children decades of life. So there's real world implications, but we're really looking outside the box and really focusing on this question of what is the beneficial activity that we need to be doing, and what does that look like, and how will that card or that seminar help really build the bridges to give people the tools, you know, and really help them get in that frame of mind that the future of legal is preventative. It's let's get ahead of legal issues, because literally I've seen,
Maybe.
you know, when you run the numbers. Oh, sorry.
No, it's
That's
fine.
okay. Sorry, I'm
Moving on to Orly Knudsen with Collaborative Field Data Collection Solution. Are there any questions for Orly? Jack, you can go.
Yeah, so if I understand this right, you are not producing a product. You're using an existing product and with to resolve an issue in the field. Is that correct? Is that simplistically what you're doing?
Not quite. We're purchasing the hardware and we're adding the intellectual property. So we're installing software, combinations of open source packages, in addition to the licensed commercial ArcGIS enterprise software. And so altogether, that combined produces this field portal, which from our understanding is a unique product.
I see. And so that's what you would use the money for if you were to be selected, is to change. You would buy a product. You're going to buy the product anyway, but you're going to use the money to customize it to your need, to this need. And it's only your need. You're not going to try to sell it as a product to other, you know, you're not going to try to use your intellectual property and sell it to somebody else.
I would say currently we don't have an intention currently of licensing it to others. With the money, the goal would be that we could field at least one more field crew or another and be able to go out and go out there and collect more data and have more of this available to the state of Alaska for emergency response capabilities. So right now we don't have the ability to be terribly flexible in that. And again, the people who do a lot of this type of work basically have said, hey, the way we do this nowadays, you have to have connectivity at some point to allow us. The kind of innovation is that we can take the full suite out there, work on it, and then be able to provide this capability for, you know, currently primarily for geologic mapping, but for all sorts of things in the future, particularly for emergency responses, because, you know, when connectivity gets scrambled and wrecked, that's kind of the point of what we would do with that.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Nope. Okay. We are moving on to Christopher Hunter, bioreactor air filtration biofuel generator. Any questions for Christopher?
I guess I would have one. Have you thought about processing the waste streams for this product? Is there, I guess as I understand it, this bioreactor would go in a building and you would be filtering the air to produce this biofuel. I imagine that there's going to be a waste stream from it. You're going to have you're going to have some component of what the reactor collects and potentially discards that is going to need to be managed. Is there a plan that would have to be put together for that?
There would be a little bit more research involved in that. As mentioned before, with the heavy metals that would be from the PM 2.5, I don't foresee it being amounts larger than maybe, say, a small canister worth out of a year. But those could eventually pile up to become a problem, and possibly the metals in the PM 2.5 to be mined, certified, and dealt with and recycled.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chris? David, you can go.
Yeah, Chris, what is the estimated flow rate that this could handle for the air moving through the system?
The 5-pass that was shown on the first slide would handle about 100 cubic feet per minute, maximum flow rate. So each unit could handle 20 cubic feet per unit, and then the first slide shows, say, a 5-pass, which would be suitable for a 1,500 square foot house.
So you said, so this can be scaled.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It can be set up like a Bitcoin mining operation, where if you were to build, say, a Connex box full of these, you could extract as much of the pollutants from the air as you want to produce as much biodiesel as you want.
Awesome. Is there any last questions for Chris before we move on? Nope. Okay. Now we are moving on to Cruz Colin with 4 Elements Hybrid Energy System. Are there any questions for Cruz? Jessica, you can go.
Hi, thank you. Can you help me understand how many, let's say, whether it's people or households or how you're measuring it, but one unit should provide energy for how many whatevers?
Yeah, so the interesting part about this invention, as I said in my presentation, is that it's scalable. So, for example, a third world country household does not need as much energy as, say, your average American household, not even close. Like your average American household uses over 100 times as much energy as a third world house, right? So really the goal for this product is to be used in a third world scenario. Really, it's not designed to be able to, at least at smaller scale, to produce enough energy for an average American household. It would more be targeting like developing countries. So whether those are just African countries, maybe Central South America, and like I kind of said in my presentation, Native American communities that, again, don't use up as much energy as your average first world household.
And so how many,
it,
how many of those households? Yeah, I didn't think I was going to put it in my backyard.
Oh yeah. So you said how many households you think for third world?
Households or individual? Yep. In the situation where you see it being used, how much energy does it produce? How many households in that scenario of a developing area?
Yeah, in that scenario, it would do about, I've estimated about 5 at the scale that I would want. So the scale that I would want is the device is 7 feet tall and about 10 feet wide. So it's not actually too big considering the amount of households it could potentially help in a third world scenario. But again, if you were to apply it to like a normal household, it would need to be a lot larger than for a third world. But again, this is a third world solution.
Yep. And then can you also, just as a follow-up, tell me how much you think it costs to manufacture a unit?
Yeah, so my prototype costs, the most expensive part was the generator. It was $253, I believe, with everything included. But again, the generator was the most expensive part. That was $150. And so excluding the generator, I got a battery for $20. So really it was just, once I can get the generator cost down, so potentially have a licensing agreement with the manufacturer directly, so I'm not buying it second, third hand, the cost could go down a lot more. So potentially 150, probably potentially 150 range is where it would realistically be. But again, once you start once you start not buying all the materials directly from stores, you then keep decreasing the actual cost up front. So probably around 100 or so would be where I would really want it when I start selling it.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Are there any more questions for Cruz? David, you can go.
Yeah, given that this has versatile options for generation, not all sites will suit what you're showing currently. Have you considered a modular approach that would allow, maybe deduct the hydro generation option for this site? Let's say you could take that out, or you just plug and play if you did want to add it at a later time.
Yeah, so actually what I've provisionally patented is actually a modular system. So you actually do, each part is an individual piece. So like you don't need all 4 aspects of it. The 4 aspects is the full version. But like you said, you can easily just, if there's no water, just take off the water. And then the rest of it honestly is pretty good. Really the water is the only part that needs to be modular, because the rest, no matter where you put it, eventually all those 3 other components are going to come into play. So yeah, the water is modular, but the rest is the unit. So the water is optional, but the rest is what it is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Justin, you can go.
You mentioned that you have a prototype. Have you done any field testing on it with regard to, average output over a 24-hour period? Some of those sorts of things. Do you have any of that you can give us?
Yeah, so for the prototype, I have not gone beyond like lab testing, so to speak. So it's all been done in a lab setting. It has not actually moved on to the field setting. So right now I'm just testing different generator sizes, different battery sizes, how different solar panel sizes. Right now I'm just kind of playing around with everything. So I'm still kind of in that stage, so to speak. So to answer your question, no, I haven't done actual field testing yet. I'm still playing around with all the sizings.
Well, and then to follow up with your modular approach, and you mentioned that this is kind of for a third world application where you need to be able to utilize materials that aren't commercially available. As far as the core technology, have you, I guess for lack of a better way to put it, is there somebody that makes a wind generator for this scale that has already optimized that component that then plugs and plays? It seems like the advantage of the approach, having the modular approach, is that you're really almost tackling the energy storage component of the renewable energy problem by having this versatility. But to address, you're not remanufacturing or reinventing solar panels. You're taking what's commercially available that's already been optimized and working it to your approach. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So my invention is using pre-existing technology. It's just using it in a clever way. So again, my whole goal is to eliminate that reliability on consistent weather and predictable climate patterns, because with climate change, we're seeing it's not as predictable as it once was. And that's becoming a huge problem. So like, why would companies spend $1 billion, say, on a giant wind farm if in 5 years' time there's not going to be enough wind to actually produce the output, right? That's a big worry. So this kind of, again, it's a smaller solution, but it, again, could be scaled in theory. But for my application, it's small right now, and it's using currently pre-existing proven technology, just in a different, clever way.
Thank you.
Fantastic. You've heard from the first 5 competitors. Tune in tomorrow evening, same time, same place, for the remaining 5 presentations. Judges, if you could please stay on for a few minutes for an announcement, that would be great. Don't forget to vote on your fan favorite idea once per day before the finals and the awards ceremony. But wait, who wants a fun and sunny vacation? During the finals and awards ceremony, not only will winners be announced, but there will also be a giveaway to audience members for numerous store prizes, including a round-trip ticket to anywhere Alaska Airlines flies. Thank you and good night.